Alright guys, so welcome back. Again, thanks so much for stopping in. So I have Mark here. He is the owner here at Kodiak Truck in North Prairie, Wisconsin. You're going to hear me say that quite a bit because we're dumping a ton of YouTube videos down over here, man, and it's a lot of informational based stuff. So I appreciate your time. Thanks, Mark, for allowing me to shoot videos here.
Yep, no, thank you.
If you guys want to learn how to rebuild and even potentially remanufacture a 271, this particular case came out of a Dodge Cummins. What year, Mark?
This is a 03 application because it was an 03 only application for the Cummins, but then it looks very similar for the 04 and up.
So it should correlate for the same generation, if you will.
Basically, the internal's still the same rebuild. There's one part that's different.
Awesome. Hopefully we can learn something, guys. Thanks so much for stopping by, and stay tuned.
So we're going to take both snap rings out. We got to pull the seals out of the front to get the snap rings off. I'm pretty sure we're going to see some pretty major carnage and wear inside this case when we get this apart. Dodge cases, I highly recommend changing the fluid more often due to the fact that they just kind of beat their fluid up worse because of being a live front end. We're going to blow the 8 bolts out of the tail housing. We're going to get the tail housing off. These can be a little tricky sometimes to get apart. There's spreader pieces in here where you can put a bar in. Sometimes these little tabs break off. We're going to try a couple different methods. If we end up breaking this thing, we'll just take a dead blow and try to hit it sideways and shock it off. So it came off a little bit of finesse. Usually you can get them to go. Now these got the oil pump right here. They're not like the Duramax cases where they're underneath the housing. So we end up having to go in, pull tube back off the oil pump so we can slip that out, and then we can get right down to the snap ring that's going to release off there so we can get the rear tail housing off once we take all the bolts off. So I just reach in there with an angled needle nose, pull it back, kind of give it a twist sideways because it's got a rubber hose on, and then we just get underneath this and pop it up and out. There we go. Got that off. Now we're going to go and blow all 25 bolts out of here, the 10 mils.
What kind of impact gun do you use?
What kind of impact? That's just an old rigid, and it does pretty fair because these things aren't really bolted together all that tight, and so it works good. But otherwise, we do use air impacts for a lot of the stuff. So guys, you're going to see in the video on these builds, we always replace the sprockets and chain in these cases. It's an #1 wear problem. You guys with Dodges stretches these chains like crazy. So even if they look good, it isn't worth putting them back in. You're just asking for trouble.
Rustbelt Mechanic says you need to get your impact traded over to an SP Tool impact.
Hey, maybe we should talk to SP Tools about that. We could get dialed in on that.
So as you're tearing everything apart here, Mark, is there anything that you're noticing off the gate, or just before we got to inspect everything?
Yeah, we're going to have to get everything washed and inspected, but it's not looking like too much major carnage on this one. I can at a glance see some shift fork pads that are wasted. We've got some metal on our magnet if you take a peek. So there's definitely some wear going on here. We're going to inspect everything. A lot of these Dodge cases I've taken apart already. And you'll look inside this housing and you'll see where the chain has been kissing the inside of this thing and grinding up some aluminum. In this case, it's looking pretty good, but again, it's not worth the time or effort to not put the stuff in. So we're going to make sure we got new chain and sprockets in here, oil pump and that sort of thing. So if you look here too, guys, probably some of that metal that we see in the oil there, if we look, it looked like there was a high spot in the casting here, and our chain stretched a little bit, and you can see where the chain has been hitting that and rubbing on that a little bit. Now it hit the high spot in the casting, it didn't actually hit the rest of the housing up in here. We see a casting mark in there, not a big deal, but this was probably a little bit of a high spot when they casted it, and our chain hit that. So that again too would account for some of that discoloration we see in the oil. All right, I will get these parts all washed up and we'll get this thing back together. So we got our new parts here. We got our chain, our Borg-Warner chain, our new drive and driven gears, our brand new oil pump bearings. We're gonna go ahead and put our pocket bearing in the back of our input gear, and we're gonna get that into the planetary. We're gonna drive this down and in. You gotta kind of set the depth on these. They go about 3/8 of an inch deeper than what the edge of the gear is here on the Dodge ones, because they run an extra long stub on these. Now on some of the Fords, this stub is shorter out on the end of the output shaft, so that means you got to run that pocket bearing back further then. So we're going to go ahead then, and we're going to put it down into our planetary. We got our thrust washer that goes in first. Drop our input gear. Drop our other thrust. Top plate. We're going to assemble our drive hub here quick. We'll put our snap ring on. Get that down on. Got to make sure it sets in place. Right there. Drop our drive teeth on. This is what locks us in. This is our brand new drive gear. We'll put another snap ring on here. And we're going to go ahead and drop it right down onto the main shaft. That down and in. And we'll drop our snap ring for this. Good to go. We're going to go ahead then and just put our range fork pads on. These kind of snap down and in. You'll hear them kind of click. That's for our range hub, so that's prepped and ready to drop back into the case. And then I just take a little trans gel to hold these pads in place, because they like to fall off sometimes when you're assembling, and then you got to fish it out of the bottom of the case. Smear a little of gel on, doesn't hurt a thing, lubes it up a little bit. And that's it. Then we'll be ready to drop our internals in. Jesse's working on getting the cases glass beaded. We'll get those to paint, and we'll be assembling this thing here in just a couple minutes. Put our bearings down in our case now. We got our snap ring back in for the sun gear. We're going to tap these down in. I usually grease the bore a little bit just to get them kind of started. Okay, we got both bearings in. We'll drop our snap rings in that'll hold them in. We're going to drop our selector in next. We'll tighten this up tighter once we get it back on the bench top lane there. Now we're going to go ahead and drop our planetary in. Drop our range fork and range hub in. Now our mode fork with our slider clutch. Our main shaft in. Down and in. Our front output assembly in. Our other new sprocket and chain in. Our snap ring on, our return spring, and our magnet. Now we're going to go ahead and just clean down the case half. We're going to get our rear, which is at paint right now, and we'll get our rear case half on with our oil pump pickup. We put a little bit of oil on the OD of the bearing and the bore here to get this to slide. These bearings are huge in these cases, so sometimes we got to give them a little extra help to get in there. I'm going to tap it down in. And we'll put our snap ring in. That's in, and then we're going to flip it over because our oil pump pickup is going to go inside this case. So our oil pump pickup, we need to feed down through this hole, stick that down in, and then we'll be prepped and ready to go when it's time to put the oil pump on. And just tweak that tube just a hair. Be good to go there. We'll wash down this back case. Grab my silicone and we'll silicone this up. Alright, we don't put a monstrous bead of silicone because it's really not needed, but we just put a nice fine bead around here. Perfect. We're going to put 2 in on the end. I always put the end ones in first with the dowels. Put all the rest of our bolts in. On the Dodges, they run a 1-off bolt that goes directly in the center here, right where this little nub is on the case. So if you ever take one of these apart, you got all the hardware laying out, you don't know where they go, that's where it goes. So, and that is the top of the case. The top of the case is towards me. As you guys notice, we kind of take great pride in what it looks like also, so we run all our housings, get glass beaded. Cavities where the oil pump lays down into. We're just going to give them just a touch of silicone, just to kind of keep the pump from rattling in there. That's how they do it from the factory. And then if you guys look, this notch right here is where our oil pump tube is. That's where we line up. So we're going to go ahead and drop that down. Stick our hardware on. Alright, we're going to put our rear seal in. Good to go there. Alright, we're going to get our snap ring in for our input. Get it up close, and then I just give it a push with the screwdriver. You normally hear them snap down in, like it just did. Good there. And our bigger snap ring over here for our front output. Same thing, dropped. We'll put our seal in here. And we're going to get our other one. Put our yoke on, and we'll be done here. Get it up on there, give her a little tap. The nut on the front.
Very cool, very insightful. Thanks again, Mark, man. This is just incredible. Do you have a website?
We do, KodiakTruck.com. You can find us on Instagram also.
Follow him. You have to follow this guy. Seriously, he's got some really cool stuff. Also, he did give me a coupon code to help you guys save some money. So if you guys want to buy one of these remanufactured units for your vehicle, just use my coupon code TruckMaster. So, but cool. Hey, look out for some more later videos as we get the Driveline Wizard back on the channel next time. I appreciate your time as always, guys. Take care.
Bye, guys. Thanks.